Good afternoon and welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation for November 12th, 2025. I'm Steve Brandt. I'm the president of the board. Before we begin the meeting, I'd like to ask the clerk to read the reminder regarding rate of speech.
Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments.
At this time, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify the presence of a quorum.
Member Fry is absent. Abene.
Present.
Payne.
Present.
Chugtai is absent. Vice President Priestinson.
Present.
President Brandt.
Present.
There are 4 members present.
Let the record show that we have a quorum present. I will now offer an acknowledgement that we meet today on land that was claimed and contested by the Dakota and Anishinaabe peoples. We'll now proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's Legislative Information Management System, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. Board members, the agenda for today's meeting is before us. May I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a proper motion before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The agenda is adopted. Next is the acceptance of minutes from the October 12th, 2025 meeting. May I please have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a proper motion before us. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Okay, the ayes have it, and the minutes are accepted as presented. Item 4 on our agenda today is the acceptance of public comment. While we have closed the public hearing on the levy, it's board standard practice to receive comment on any of our other agenda items in any meeting's agenda. The clerk informs me that we have no one signed up to testify today. And I will then move on to item number 5, and the item is the Executive Secretary pay discussion. I will ask Vice Chair Priestinson to again lead on this item.
Thank you. So from our last meeting, we had a couple of items that we sent out for further investigation, which was whether or not we could pay back pay to our staffer, whether or not we could move her up a step immediately, which would go effective the following paycheck from the decision. And the third one was in relation to moving up to a step 3 and when we could do that or not. Would it be January? Would it be her anniversary date? So we did receive information back on all 3 of those items. Thankful to staff for being swift on that. So it is illegal, meaning against the law, in order to back pay. So that's off the table. What is on the table is to increase, you have it in front of you, there is a motion. I'll read that in a moment, but to go ahead and increase to a step 2. To refresh your memory, the reason that we did that was that the decision on discussion on what step to start Ms. Keiderling at never came before this body, and so it automatically reverted, or decision was made without us to go to start at step 1. And at the last meeting, I believed that she should have been started at a step 2, in my opinion, and we had some agreement around that. So that's the motion that you have in front of you today. And then there's a third portion that doesn't require us to vote, but what it does mean is that she is eligible to move up to a step 3 at her anniversary date.
All right, you have made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments?
I was going to read it for the benefit of the public.
Very good.
The motion is to authorizing a new employment agreement for the Executive Secretary, Christina Keiderling, to increase her pay rate to the next available step in the pay progression schedule, effective with the pay period for work performed beginning November 16, 2025. Such employment agreement shall incorporate all other terms of employment as originally stated, and such increase shall not affect the date of service for future step progressions.
right. We have a motion before us, and it has been seconded. Any further discussion? Commissioner Benny.
I just want to thank the Vice President for working on this and bringing this forward, and I think this is probably a really good way to do it, because it won't affect then the step increase that's then going to come in April. It won't change that cycle. So I think this is a really good way to handle this. So thank you for doing that.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, we will call the question on the motion. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. The motion is adopted. The next item is a discussion of revenue pathways and possibilities. I'll take the lead on this discussion. What I am trying to do here is follow up on the discussion we had at our October 22nd meeting, the presentation that was also received by the City Council about possible sources of revenue. This is obviously a City Council decision, but since the City Council asked the report to be made both to the City Council and to the BET, I'm looking to see if there's any feedback from the BET or members of the, I'm looking to see if any consensus develops out of this group that we can use to advise the City Council of sort of our initial glance. This is a very preliminary report. We need additional information. I believe that is coming in a few weeks. But I'm not trying to supplant the City Council's decision-making in this area, but mainly act in an advisory capacity. So I'll lead on this, and these are in rank order since we just got done with ranked choice voting. My first choice is already on the table, and so it's not really an addition to the discussion, although I might elaborate on some of my thoughts, and that is expanding the downtown taxing area for liquor and restaurant liquor establishments and restaurants. That has been through before the legislature, I believe, twice. Evidently, there are some political obstacles to it in the minds of legislators. My only comment on this, other than to inquire if any of if Councilmember Payne can advise at all about the politics of this one and why we're running into resistance, is that maybe we're aiming a little. I would suggest we aim a little bit more ambitiously on this one, and seek autonomy over the boundaries of our liquor and taxing area as a city, as a home rule city. It seems to me we know the city best, and legislators from all over the state don't. And I would like to see perhaps the council consider amending its legislative agenda to make this item authority for the city council to set the liquor and restaurant taxing areas. Now they're in the statute, and so that would require an amendment of statute. So I'll get that one out of the way first, but looking at the new options that were placed before us 2 weeks ago, I would have to say my first choice conceptually would be the income tax on higher households, although I say that with a grain of salt because I know there is concern from the voters I spoke with about whether this would cause tax flight from the city, and I think that's a valid concern. I think we should ask the people who are researching this area to research the experience of cities that have implemented a local income tax in a large metro area on solely the central city so that we can see through, and it's possible to do that, I believe, using census data, which stratify incomes, whether there is indeed validity to that concern. I would also point out that we may be losing people to the property tax, high property tax now among those high earners. I found the property tax figures showing an increased dependence on the property tax in going out through 2031 to be very illuminating, and I can't help but think that that will drive potentially some residents out of the city who are paying high property taxes. So there are questions to pursue as we evaluate that potential strategy. I think my second priority would be the land transfer tax. And I say that because there is state and county precedent for a land transfer tax. The state would charges about $825 on a $250,000 home, and the Hennepin County charges about $25. They're both value-based tax. State is $165 for $500 of sale price, and the the county portion is 0.25, 25 cents on every 500. And it has been suggested that a referendum may be necessary for that. I would like to get further information on that once this gets to potentially to the city attorney's office for their review so that we can clarify that. The thing I like about this is that it hits people essentially when they're flush with cash, and that is at the time of sale of a house. And therefore, it shouldn't present the same hardship as some other potential taxes. We might explore whether there's a logical use for that tax that would fit within the general fund, such as redevelopment purposes and so on, so that we can make a logical use of that revenue. And the third priority I have among the new potential sources of revenue is the voluntary pilot payment in lieu of taxes, where tax-exempt institutions are requested to make a property tax payment, full or partial, that represents the value of the city services that they receive, the fact that they're served by police, fire, street plowing. I know that my church, for example, which would be tax exempt, has benefited from fire services, which kept a small fire from getting much larger, and also has used security recently in light of what happened at Annunciation Church. So the other thing I like about the Boston one, which based on their per capita yield, could reasonably be expected to yield $40.2 million, just based on our population, is that they publish a list of who's paid and who hasn't paid. So there's a certain amount of implied peer pressure to at least pay something. And in Boston, it applies to medical, educational, and cultural institutions that have more than $15 million in total property. So that hits the big players, not the small social service agencies that are out there. So that's my input, and I will now be quiet and listen to what others have to contribute. Commissioner Priest Stinson.
I would say that just generally speaking, taxes, no matter who we take them from, don't do us any good if we're not smart about how we spend them. So that's just the first thought in my head. And when I think about tax the rich, what I'm really thinking about is people paying their fair share. We have millionaires in our city. Some of them were my donors. I spoke to some of these people. Many of them moved from outer suburbs to places like the Mill District after their retirement. And what they seemed to feel was less worry about how much taxes they're paying. They knew what they were getting into moving into a major city, more concerned about where their dollars are being spent. A lot of good conversation there. I hear the conversation a lot of, it's called a lot of different things, flight for different reasons. People have even used the term white flight. I've heard it all. The truth is that there is no financial sanctuary city anywhere in this country. Wherever you go, you're going to pay taxes. Wherever you go, there's some sort of financial crisis. However, we do know that we rely on 80% of our taxes in this city in order to keep it going. And certainly, we are not a majority of millionaires. Some of the things that speak to me, since you use ranked choice voting, I'll follow suit. I do love the idea of expanding the downtown taxing. That is going to be a much bigger lift. That's going to require a lot more. It's going to require us to rely on a lot of relationship building as well, as we talk to folks that normally we don't talk to. And so I like to have a bigger picture goal that's going to take a lot of work to get there, but also two things that maybe might not be lower hanging fruit, but certainly are some things that we might not have to operate outside of our government for, which is payroll taxes from the corporate entities that we have in our city, as well as a luxury tax on capital investments. I would like to see that done. Another thing, I know I said I was going to stick to 3, but there's some other common sense things I think that will come out when we get into the weeds of the presentation from the consultant, are some things like increasing the fee for people keeping their properties vacant, whether they're commercial or residential properties. It's set way, way too low. And perhaps there can be other, like, great policy that comes out of that, like a fund that goes into remodeling a lot of these homes. And I say that because I had the pleasure of working on a campaign about 2 years ago, for about 2 years, that focused on the private equity investors that come in and buy up large swaths of our city in areas of our city that are underserved, both historically and present day. And they often suck the life's blood out of our community and then leave it, and then leave a lot of destitute properties for which us to deal with. So all that to say, those are the things that make sense to me as well, expounding upon it and relying on those in our council to think about really smart policy decisions that could also complement some of these changes, not just about where the money goes, but also what does it look like in enforceable policy to start moving some of these dollars and start making some better decisions about where we're spending our money. We are a city that is very, in my opinion, very top-heavy. Our government is pretty big, has a lot of divisions, a lot of departments, and while we've done a great job at reorganizing government structure, I think there's a lot more to be done in that area. And I think that some of these things are related to that as we talk about how we're spending our money. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Priest-Stinson, thank you. Do either Commissioner Payne or Commissioner Benny have a comment? Commissioner Payne?
Thank you, President Brandt. I think as you outlined, a lot of what we want to pursue is going to require changes at the Capitol, and that means we need to be really laser focused on our priorities. So this conversation is really helpful for us because I'll be taking this feedback as we think about updating our legislative priority document on the City Council side. And I would say just in general, my approach to this entire topic is that we have a structural change in how downtowns work across the country. It's not unique to Minneapolis. So we need a structural change on how we fund local government. It's not going to be people driving in from the suburbs to work downtown and that driving all of our tax revenue. So a lot of what I'll be looking at, whether it's the expanding our authority around entertainment taxes, liquor taxes, or land value taxes, just a lot more flexibility and local control, I would say, as a kind of broad theme of how we want to approach this, because I would like us to get to a point where we recognize that every corner of our city is an attractive place to live and work, and some of these hybrid work environments or work setups that people have still may have them driving downtown, and today it was exceptionally busy downtown at lunch. But those Mondays and Fridays where you might be working from home, or maybe you even have a co-working space somewhere in your community that is not, you are still generating that economic activity, but it's just not captured in our framework for taxing. So I think that, especially on this body of BET, when we're looking at property tax levies as kind of like our main purview, it would be so much easier for us to adopt lower and lower property taxes if we had those other sources of revenue. And so I think how we focus and prioritize for those conversations at the state capitol is going to be really key here. And then the other thing I'm thinking about as well is around the fact, because I think especially we talk about a wealth tax and people, you can just go across the border 15 minutes and get away from a wealth tax in Minneapolis. I think a lot of our suburban neighbors have had artificially low taxes over the last 50 years. And as their infrastructure is coming to end of life, they're going to start getting hit with increasing levels of property taxes just to be able to maintain their infrastructure at a status quo level. And so I absolutely agree with Vice President Stinson that this concept of flight out of the city, there isn't going to be some safe place to land where there isn't a jurisdiction that isn't in some sort of structural crisis when it comes to how they're raising revenue to keep their city alive. So I think this is about really reorienting the entire model of how government is funded based on the practical reality of a global pandemic.
Commissioner Benny.
Very interesting discussion. I think the only thing I'll comment on, try to think about parks, because I'm the park commissioner here. But that the entertainment tax, I think, has some merit. So the park board, especially if it, I'm thinking about ways in which revenues could flow to the parks, either directly or indirectly, from maybe some new revenue sources, if that makes sense. Maybe the park board still is a property tax dependent entity, but the property tax burden that the city has is relieved by some of these other mechanisms. But the entertainment tax, the park board actually is it's a huge driver of visits to the city. The chain of lakes are the second biggest attraction in the state of Minnesota behind the Mall of America. And many, many of the visitors, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but millions of visitors come from outside the city. And so that's putting, they talk about services, the city supplies, wear and tear on the city and all of that. I think what I like about that is we're not going back to the same payers. So I would just put my vote in for something like that.
All right. I would follow up on that, the few comments. I agree that we need to focus on smart city spending. It was something that was mentioned by almost everybody I met when I talked about the potential income tax idea while out campaigning in the election, for the election last week. And I hope to talk to Commissioner Payne further about that, so that perhaps we could figure out a way forward on that. There are sort of a couple of different approaches to the vacancy issue. One is the San Francisco approach, which imposes a certain fee on homes that are vacant for more than 160 some days a year, whatever half a year is. And I discovered in looking up a little bit more about that it's been unfortunately ruled unconstitutional, I believe, by a federal court on both state and federal constitutional grounds in San Francisco. I haven't read in detail about that, but then the other approach is there is a vacant and boarded building fee here in Minneapolis. My recollection is that has to be justified by the city's cost of essentially tending to those buildings, that we can't charge a higher fee than we can justify by doing an analysis of what it costs us to monitor them. Otherwise, I'd be with you on that, Commissioner Presenson. Right. We do have the fee, but it's basically costed out by what the city can justify in terms of staff time and effort. And I think we've been told pretty firmly by the courts that we have to be able to justify any fee that we charge in that regard. I agree with Commissioner Benny that it would be nice to find a way to milk some additional revenue from the many, many, many visitors who come to places like the chain of lakes. I can't tell you how many people I ran into while out looking for Minneapolis voters this summer at the lakes were from St. Paul or from the suburbs. We are a very attractive park system. We do have a charge for parking at the parking lots at the Chain of Lakes, but I'd like to see that expanded to the parking bays that go around the lake as well. I believe that's started, I think I saw one on the west side of Bidé-Makaska sometime this summer, and so that's a promising way. We've got some views out on the table. I don't know that we have a consensus, but I would encourage you, excuse me, Commissioner Priest-Stinson.
Well, I was going to recommend, since we don't have everyone today, and if I recall correctly, we are going to be getting a briefing before the end of the year from the consultant. Perhaps that would be a better time to take up the conversation and then perhaps vote on sending a memo with some consensus information, and then could just have a summary of how different members felt too. It doesn't just have to be all where we agreed. There could be other good ideas in there, and it doesn't mean that we have to have agreement to send a memo. So I feel like it might be a little premature to do something without additional knowledge, but I think the discussion was good just to see where everyone lands, and it seems to make some good sense to maybe send a memo to the council after we get that presentation as a suggestion.
I would agree, assuming it's, I think there is a need to give some feedback, even if it's just individually, to the staff, because I think our support for any number of these items will depend on, what we can find out about how things have played out elsewhere. And I think I will probably take the initiative, just speaking personally, of sending a memo to Director Hawkins to point out some areas where it would be helpful to have additional information. And I would encourage any of you as well, and I'd be glad to mention that we discussed it. We don't have a consensus at this point because we're waiting for more information. But we do want to make a knowledgeable decision that would be bolstered by what additional information he could provide for us. And so, any more questions or comments? Okay. We have none, so I guess we have nothing to receive and file, but thank you for a robust discussion. The last item for discussion is the BET dashboard demonstration, which will be presented by BE staffer Christina Ketterling to lead on this item. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. Just bear with me one moment as I get signed in here. We're going to do a little different today. Alrighty, Commissioners, good evening. As you know, my name is Christina Keiterling, and I'm your advisor here at the Board of Estimate and Taxation. Just wanted to provide you a quick update and a little walkthrough of your new dashboard. So, since last time we spoke, a BET activity dashboard was set up. There are two outstanding items that I am still working with IT on. Those are, first of all, the dashboard is not being updated in real time, but that should occur in the next 1 to 2 weeks. So we're working with IT that when I push updates on my internal software, it'll update in real time on this dashboard for you to see. The other thing that they're setting up to do is embedding this dashboard onto your public-facing website. So right here, I have your internal SharePoint pulled up just so you can take a look at the dashboard. If you go in here to Quick Links and click on this BET activity dashboard, it's going to pull up the dashboard for you. I did a few different things here, but essentially what it is that it's taking the work plan that you gave me, along with any kind of administrative deliverables that you have tasked me with during the BET meetings, and it's giving you a place to see what the request status of those are. So if you go and hover over, for example, BET 25003, it'll actually link you to the BET meeting where you brought up that issue, or you discussed it, or you told me to go take action on it. So it's a way to just give us a little bit more accountability and to make sure that I am making progress how you want to see it, and that you can see everything that's a work in progress for the BET. Where this is going to be housed on your website, your public-facing website, the city website, I imagine will be right down here next to the bylaws. I think that makes the most sense for them to put a radio button. But like I said, it's going to take IT about 1 to 2 more weeks. I can make a dashboard, but when it comes to embedding it onto a city website, that is far and above my IT skills. So we do need to work with them on that. Finally, just so you have a reference point and you can see an example of maybe what some other dashboards look like, several of you have probably seen the Policy and Research Dashboard is what it was called. They're now Legislative Research and Oversight. It's housed in DataSource, which will actually be where our dashboard is housed as well. This is not unique what we're trying to do by giving the BET a dashboard. In fact, many, if not almost all, city departments have a dashboard so that you can go in and kind of see what your tax dollars are working on. We're just doing the exact same thing now for the BET. We're trying to give a little bit more public awareness so that people can see what is the BET using their levy funds to explore, and what is their staff actually getting done. So we're following well-set precedent. There's not as much on our dashboard yet because we're not as built out. I think one day we'll probably look a little bit more like Policy and Research here, who have, different research projects from multiple quarters over multiple years. For now, we just have the small dashboard that we're working with based on the current work plan you've given me. I expect us to build this out over the end of the year and certainly into next year, and it's kind of constantly going to be evolving. If there's anything else that you envision on this dashboard or would like to work with me with to change it or tweak it so it's easier for you to go in and look at, we can certainly do that. But I just wanted to give you a little update to let you know that there has been a dashboard created. We're doing everything we can to get it into DataSource where it has to be housed and then embedded onto the public-facing BET website. So if any of you have any questions on any of that, just let me know, but it was mostly a status update for you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Commissioner Benny.
Thank you for doing that work. Did it say you BET-cha? What, can you roll down? You betcha?
Oh, sure.
I think it's really important for me to see that.
Sure. This is your internal SharePoint.
Yep.
And yeah,
I want to know who came up with that. It's really important to me to know.
Thank you. Yeah, that was me, ma'am.
Okay, that's it. I mean, let's go back and move her to step 3. That was awesome.
So
okay.
You all should have access to this. So if
I
you
appreciate
don't,
that.
for any reason, please let me know.
I haven't tried, but I think I'll have to use probably my City Minneapolis login, so I'll
ma'am.
dust that off and try it. The other thing is, it's somewhat related, but it would be great to shake the citizens and say, please pay attention to what the BET is doing. So this is great.
Sure.
You had also previously, it's a little diversion from the topic, but you talked about the social media getting kind of dusted off as well, the BET social media. Has that happened, like a Facebook account or something? Because I'll totally follow it.
Oh, I so appreciate it. So the last update on that, there are 2 currently existing social media sites, and one is for the vice president and one is for the president for the elected positions. We actually don't have one just for the BET. Our social media team was thinking we did, but then after some investigation, they have not been able to find one. So as of right now, it looks like we just have those 2 social media profiles for the president and vice president, and they plan to have them reset after your first meeting of the year, just so that whomever takes over those roles will have new login credentials. If it was the will of this board, you could certainly give me a staff direction to have a third board social media site if that was important to you. It's just not in existence right now.
Okay, very good. I just appreciate this attempt to be public-facing, and that's another mechanism we've talked about. But, okay, that's it. Thank you.
My colleagues have any other questions or comments? Commissioner Priest-Stinson.
Just quick feedback that we do have comms, and it does work when we push things out. We did a beautiful job of doing that for the last charter required meeting, I believe, but we could use it more often and for other meetings because we have broken the record for public attendance of this meeting before. And people are involved when they're engaged, and it's our job to engage them. And so I just wanted to encourage us to continue to do that because the data does show that when we do, people do show up, and when we don't, they don't.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, unless you have a further presentation. Okay, we'll move on to updates and announcements. Does anybody have any information to impart for the benefit of the board? All right, I note that all those who sought reelection on the board were reelected, so we have the possibility of not great turnover, and we will be joined, of course, by a new public member replacing Commissioner Priest-Stinson, although there's certainly no replacing Commissioner Priest-Stinson at the beginning of next year. All right, seeing no further business before the board, we will stand adjourned.